Now back to the Aaron Harber Show.
Welcome back to the show. This is our third segment with Mickey Edwards in part one of a special two-part series. We're talking about his experience in Washington and what is happening today and some of his solutions for the challenges that we're facing. So you were talking about campaign finance reform. What do you think needs to be done to set the ship right?
I don't think there is a way to set the ship right as long as you are allowing this terrible infusion of money that requires people who run for office to spend so much of their time, trying to raise money. And they raise it for what? They raise it to put it on television in ad form, where it's not a discussion like this, but you're giving, little brief attacks on your opponent, or very broad general statements that really don't enlighten the public very much. I regret that so much of campaigning is done that way. But one of the things that happens is that, money and the consultants who are telling you this is what you have to do, causes you to be out there raising huge amounts of money all the time. And so a campaign that might have cost you, $100,000, $200,000 would today cost you $1 million. And so even leaving aside the idea that maybe people who are giving you that money are going to want something in return, because a lot of them just really want you to vote the way they would like you to vote, which you're probably going to do anyway. But the amount of effort that's required to raise amounts of money that great is quite diverting from the job of actually thinking about issues, forming coalitions, doing the things that a legislator ought to be doing.
So what can we do about that, or what should we do about that?
Well, as I said, I think what you've got to do is go back to driving all these other factors out of the process. The Supreme Court decision in Citizens United, was kind of, I know that the courts do things that are good and the courts do things that are bad, but to say that a corporation is a human being or entitled to the same rights as a human being is just idiotic. Because if you know anything about the law, which I would have thought Supreme Court justices might know, when you incorporate, you are granted legal immunities that are not available to individual citizens. So just by definition, a corporation and a citizen, a human being, are different. But it's very painful, and I don't know any way. I would like to see more campaigning of the kind I did, which was going door to door, house to house, talking to constituents, and really, that used to be the way. But as long as it's going to be largely through broadcast and other things that cost a lot of money, now but let me add one thing. What we've always talked about, and even here so far, you say, here's the reality. Political campaigns cost a lot of money. So the only issue up for debate is, where does the money come from? Well, what if you turned that on its head and made campaigns not cost a lot of money? As a member of Congress, I was able to do free mailings, franked mail, to my constituents. Why not let my opponent running against me also do a franked letter, a free mailing to all of the constituents? Now, it still wouldn't equal what I was able to do, but they'd get their message out. In many states, California is a prime example, when you have a referendum issue, initiative petition issue, a mailing goes out from the state describing the issue and the pros and cons. Why not let candidates for federal office do the same thing? So why not? I understand I'm on television. I know I'm on television. But, free radio and TV time, that is the public airwaves, you could reduce the cost of campaigning. And then you wouldn't have to have all this influx of millionaires and casino owners pouring in millions of dollars, and debating whether a corporation is human, and labor unions taking money from people who are forced to join. You wouldn't have all that. It just wouldn't cost so much money to get elected.
Well, certainly one of the challenges, at least from some perspectives, is when you look at the role of money and the cost to campaigns, that if you're buying television time, those costs have just escalated tremendously. So
Sure.
you have candidates that are under great pressure to do that. But what about the concept that you've had different campaign finance reform measures that have passed over time? Could one argue that those measures actually have corrupted or led to greater corruption of the process? Because you have money flowing now to third parties as opposed to candidates.
Yeah. And you have a lot less transparency. Transparency is the cure for a lot of evil, and you have a lot less transparency now. A lot of these groups don't have to disclose who their donors are.
Unregulated, and undisclosed.
No, that's a real problem. And no, I think the finance systems have to be simplified. The amount of money that's required needs to be reduced. And there's a lot of changes, and the court makes it hard. The Supreme Court's definitions of rights, makes it very hard to try to figure out a system that you can sustain. But it has to be addressed. I think the Congress has to take quite seriously the negative effect that money in politics is having. I mean, one of the things it's doing, even if it's not changing how anybody votes, and I happen not to subscribe to the idea that members of Congress are for sale. I think most of them are voting what they really, truly believe. I do believe that. And I think most people contribute to a campaign not to get some special benefit, but because they want somebody who thinks the way they do. So I accept that. But you have to have a system in which people can feel free to devote their time to addressing the problems that are, it's war. But it's infrastructure, it's bridges falling down. It's a public education system in this country that absolutely stinks, that doesn't teach civics, that doesn't teach Western civilization, that doesn't teach critical thinking. We've got so many problems that people who are in elected office, Congress, state legislatures, governors, need to be free to concentrate on fixing the problems, not on how do you raise the money to stay in office.
All right, we're going to talk about these and other issues in part 2 of our 2-part series with Mickey Edwards. Mickey, I want to thank you for joining me so far.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I hope my book answers all of these all these questions.
I'm sure it does, and we're going to talk more about the concept of returning government to the people. But also, when we go to part 2, I want to talk about why so much money goes into campaigns in the first place. We'll do that, so stay tuned for part 2. This is Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.
The Aaron Harber Show would like to acknowledge its supporters. Please thank them whenever you have the opportunity. A written license from USA Talk Network is required for any use of this program. To purchase a copy or footage from any program, please contact producer@harbertv.com. Please go to www.harbertv.com for more information on usage rights and licensing fees. Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.